Alright, I believe everything is all set for us to review everything we gathered so far. I also made sure to put brand new photos for the kids that will 100% reflect who they are. I'm very proud of my doodles here. Also, I didn't really feel like doing one for Satoshi this time, so I decided to put this one instead. Alright, let's do this real quick. We're actually gonna go back to chapter 2 a little bit and talk about Mion and Shion. First off, do I think that some switcheroo is happening in the first place? Yes. The topic of one being the other, or how Rena brought the topic of either one of them being recognizable from the other, with either their hair pulled up or not, is something brought up since early parts of chapter 2. That there is this problem to solve when it comes to telling them apart. So the story wants us to think of this. Here's the thing. Mion is one that easily gets embarrassed. Shion does not. Throughout most of chapter 2, we see Shion as quite a daring young girl. Even easily grabbing Keiichi by the arm during Watanagashi and nestling him with her badonkers without getting embarrassed. So when the world is this behavior that Shion is displaying when we first got introduced to her, feeling like she is a new hire, getting super embarrassed by Keiichi's creepy advances, whereas the real Shion would revel in such advances from him, or even laugh at him for it. This is Mion, there is no doubt about it. So why is this happening? The doll. From the beginning of chapter 2, we see Mion display a certain level of sadness over Keiichi not giving her the doll, out of what Keiichi considers lack of femininity. No doubt Mion told Rena about her sadness, reason why we see Rena talk to Keiichi a lot about Mion during the early parts of chapter 2, trying to make Keiichi understand Mion's side of things without revealing too much, trying to make him understand Mion and all that. So yeah, the reason why Mion dressed up as Shion in an Angel Mort outfit was to look more feminine to Keiichi. Keiichi does connect the dots that there is a level of switcheroo going on, reason why he wanted to bring Mion the doll and make amends. Except, well, he gave it to Shion, thinking that that was Mion, but nah, that was truly Shion, whereas the one in the store was Mion for sure. Again, Mion in the store, she was easily getting embarrassed and overwhelmed, characteristically so. Going back to the first encounter with quote-unquote Shion, there is also a level of trying her best to defuse the thing and not make it awkward the next days when Keiichi is at school. I mean, we see Mion getting embarrassed on tips when talking to Satoko and Rika, and looking at Keiichi, her face red. Hell, when you think about it, there is a contradiction here. At this specific point, Keiichi says, "But when we met, you had the kind of response that you wouldn't make if we weren't meeting for the first time." To which, quote-unquote, Shion responds, "That's because my sister is always talking about you, so I knew who you were." That's a damn lie. We know that Mion and Shion don't talk to each other much, only because of more than likely a difficult past they had, but even Mion here says, at this point, that besides some talks over the phone once in a while, she hasn't seen her in a very long time. So, hold up, what does this mean? It means that, as of yet, Keiichi has not met the real Shion. The next meeting that Keiichi has with quote-unquote Shion, which is Mion, is when Keiichi goes back to home, all hungry from not eating anything that day. Mion knows this, so she prepared food for him. So, what in the world is Mion trying to do at this point? Either Mion is gonna begin to forever become the new Shion, thus continuing to make Keiichi be interested in Shion forever? Or I guess Mion is hoping that he would see through the disguise eventually and tell him, well, hey, you are finding out that it was me, Mion, with the feminine side that caught your eye, not the real Shion. So what does that tell you? Also, it seems so obvious at this point, but okay, we know that Shion lives in Okinomiya in an apartment, away from Hinamizawa. You're telling me that this quote-unquote Shion heard about Keiichi being hungry that day from the challenge and just quickly came all the way to Hinamizawa with the leftovers from Mion's food that day, like right after Keiichi came back from school? That's a little too convenient in my eyes. Also, ha! I caught you! Keiichi calls Mion, to which quote-unquote Shion did not correct her on that one. I mean, I even said that during this part. So this is evidence that this quote-unquote Shion is also Mion. So far, we only talked to Mion, never with a real Shion as far as I'm aware. But hold on, this means that the talk we had here about Hinamizawa and its solidarity is Mion. That means that the time quote-unquote Shion protected Keiichi from the bullies and met up with Oishi, it's also Mion. The scene prior, Keiichi decides to go to the restaurant and get his keys back that he left behind last time. Yeah, for this part, I can see Mion dressing up as Shion and going to the restaurant as well to meet Keiichi there. Okay, well, in that case, where the fuck is the real Shion? Well, I am not gonna budge on this one. That moment when we entered the toy store, we see both Mion and Shion at the same time. This Mion that we see here getting flustered and embarrassed at seeing Keiichi with Shion. That is characteristic of Mion. Shion, on the opposite end, being so bold and showing herself together with Keiichi, her arms wrapped around him, that's Shion. Shion is Shion and Mion is Mion. So, okay, let's go backwards in that case. That means that the talk Keiichi and Shion had prior about the doll and everything, that's Shion. That means that prior to this, the Shion that we see at Angel Mort during the intense battle, that was Shion. Keiichi went there because he got tickets for some lovely dessert together that day. So that means he had to get the tickets from Shion. That means the phone call that previous night, talking about the tickets, that was Shion too. So does this mean that this is the part where Shion comes in for the first time? Well, at this point, Keiichi is thinking that quote-unquote Shion is Mion. The real Shion, if we think that this is the real one. From the conversation on the phone and at the restaurant and such, she realized that Mion disguised herself as quote-unquote Shion and talked to him. So the real Shion went along with the new information to fool Keiichi. At this particular point, Keiichi whispers to Mion, who he thinks disguises herself as Shion at this point, thanking her for the tickets, to which Mion doesn't hear him correctly, or he didn't hear like at all, not knowing what he said. And then she went to prepare herself for a quote-unquote long day, making Keiichi think she is referring to Angel Mort contest, when in actuality she's going to work at a toy shop. At this point, I'm gonna have to be honest here, things are starting to become a bit confusing again when it comes to the switcheroo. Because while I do think that everything I said previously is true, at this point I can no longer use the Mion gets embarrassed while Shion is more daring thing. Because on one hand, there is the high possibility of Mion, while disguised as Shion, eventually gets more used to it and becomes a bit more like her sister, making her look like the true Shion. Basically because of this new femininity, because of this new femininity that Keiichi really likes, and Mion, she would surely like that, that's for sure. Like this Mion would surely like this Keiichi giving her the attention. On the other hand, the real Shion, realizing that Mion is doing a switcheroo and her being far more social and quite cunning, disguising herself as Mion, it can be easy, and pretending to get embarrassed in similar fashion to Mion to fool Keiichi would be very easy to do for her. And Shion finding out that Keiichi thinks that Shion is Mion means that, for example, right here at this particular point, she pretends to get all flustered in order to continue to try make Keiichi think that this is Mion dressed as Shion, when in actuality it is truly Shion pretending to be Mion dressed. Have you guys ever read Muv-Luv? Or Muv-Luv? I don't know what it's pronounced, to be quite honest. Even after reading the whole trilogy, maybe I'm pronouncing the title wrong. I'm bringing it up as an example for this case here. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of stories, especially in Eastern media, with this setting of two girls being born in a well-known family that rules over an empire or a village or something. One daughter will be the new heir, while the other is considered bad juju and is therefore casted aside as the black sheep of the family. That is definitely the case for Higurashi and the two Sonozaki sisters. Like, I bet $100 on it. I mean, why else you have Shion live far away from the Sonozakis in Okinomiya, in an apartment, all by herself? If the two Sonozakis don't talk to each other often, that means that there is a gap between them. Maybe a case of Shion being jealous of Mion being treated well by the family. Or something else that Mion may have done in the past to make Shion pissed at her. The thing is though, I don't think it has always been the case. It very well can be that at the beginning, the sisters, they loved each other. That they were inseparable. Why do I say that? Well, first, let's not gloss over the fact that Mion just suddenly decided to disguise herself as Shion. Like, really quickly. Like, in early parts of the chapter. Would someone like Mion do such a thing in the first place? Unless she already done something like this before, like a long time ago, and thought, I wonder if disguising myself as Shion like I used to would be the way to go in order to win Keiichi's heart. For him to see me as feminine. Shion definitely is more feminine than me, so I could do this. Also, here's a detail that I noticed, and that is in regards to the current mayor, Kimiyoshi himself. It was said that the mayor would spoil Mion. When she was going through her prankster phase, he loved her like his own daughter. This was in chapter 2 at this particular point, told by Rena. Later, in this point, after the mayor disappeared and we talked to Rika, we were on the phone with Shion, and she said that when she was little, the mayor was very nice to her. That when she played tricks on him, he would always smile. He would listen to anything she had to say, like all that stuff. I have zero reason to not believe Rena when she said that. So I do strongly believe that statement about Mion. Shion? Well, if this was Mion over the phone, it is true. If it's Shion who we are talking to, I don't know. At this point, the sequence of disappearances and deaths are happening, so either Shion or Mion are hiding themselves as the murderers. So in Shion's case, either it is true, and she does feel sad for Kimiyoshi's death, prompting her to say how much he cared for her in the past with genuine feelings, or she is pretending to feel surprised by his death and feel sad for him to make Shion look innocent in Keiichi's eyes, so that making Mion the true heartless culprit even more credible, because, well, Shion felt sad for his death. How could she be the killer in that case? Anyway, where I was going with this is, if both Mion and Shion were sympathized by Kimiyoshi in the past and loved by him, and more importantly, both are portrayed as pranksters, if we're going with that, it makes sense to think that they would also be inclined to also switch their clothes to fool people together. Cause, well, you are twins. If you call yourselves pranksters, how could you not take advantage of switching places to fool people in the past? That is where I was trying to go with this. Anyway, I honestly cannot say that I have the proper evidence to say with certainty how things are going for the events, like after the festival, when it comes to both the sisters. The only thing I can say is that, unless we're talking about a Mion that was possessed / affected by the curse / an unknown disease of the mind, Mion was truly Mion. She killed Rika, Satoko, the mayor, and she was the one who tortured Keiichi and Shion at the end. If we're talking about a proper mystery to solve, if the first half of the story before the Watanagashi festival was about Mion switching places with Shion, then that would mean the other half of the story after the Watanagashi festival would be an escalation of that. A comeuppance for Mion committing the sin of disguising herself as Shion. So as punishment, Shion would dress up as Mion, pretending to be Mion at the gatherings, lure the mayor to kill him since, well, Mion was the future head of the Sonozakis. He would do as Mion says. And also lure Rika and Satoko as well to kill them. So either a demonic Mion or a Shion disguising herself as Mion and have her revenge. With demonic tinge to it as well, I guess. A situation like, I have been dragged down and have been the sheep of the family all this time while you were at the top, and now I will crush you for all these years of suffering. I mean, for Pete's sake, at this particular point, quote-unquote Shion is giving the chance to apologize about the years of suffering, and yet we don't get to hear it. If that isn't a mark of there's more to this than what we see, then I don't know what is. The problem that I'm having with this is, why is Shion suffering in such huge pain, begging in tears for Keiichi to be alive, while also still pretending to be Shion? Like, hello? You're still gonna do this right now? Of all times, you're still keeping it a secret? Why would you pretend to still be Shion, and therefore making us believe that the murderer is Mion, when your life is at stake? If there was a switcheroo, this Shion would scream from her lungs, Keiichi, that is not Mion, it's Shion, I am Mion, do not believe her. Like, it would make you think that Shion is the one imprisoned, and the murderer is Mion. And yet here I am trying to think otherwise. Unless you're gonna tell me that this entire time, the Mion that we know in all these chapters, that Mion's actual name was always Shion, and Shion's real name was Mion, and this is the one time in the story where they call each other by their truest names. Like, if I am to go with the idea that there is a switcheroo going on, that will be the only explanation. Otherwise, like, we are dealing with a demonic Mion at this point. Like, I don't know. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, why would Shion be the one to apologize for all the years of being rude to her sister, when Shion should be the one considered the black sheep of the family who lives separately from her family in Okinomiya? Unless we're talking about the revenge of the little sister, making the next in line the one to apologize for the years of torture. Like, that would make more sense. Otherwise, Shion herself, the one who has suffered enough, is the one who has to apologize to Mion? Okay. Let me think of it this way. We know for a fact that the one who called Keiichi on the phone the next day after Watanagashi, at night, after ending the phone call with Shion, we heard Kimiyoshi. So he was alive at that point. That same night, there was the meeting. There was the gathering to discuss what to do about the intrusion into the storehouse of ritual implements, where him and Mion went to. Therefore, it is from that point onwards that Kimiyoshi disappeared and died. It is from that point when Mion committed the act. Therefore, if we're talking about Shion disguising herself as Mion to lure the mayor into killing them and hiding them in the caves, that means that Mion, who would be dressed as Shion, also had to be imprisoned from that night onward. Otherwise, if the real Mion were to be left to go to school the next day, Mayor's disappearance would have been put into question, and that might ruin the plans. So Shion, dressed as Mion, had to take care of Mion too on that same night as with the mayor. And thus, from that point onward, Shion would disguise herself as Mion, while the real Mion is imprisoned. So every interaction Keiichi had, from the night the mayor disappeared all the way to the end, it had to be with Mion, disguised as Shion. It had to be with Shion, disguised as Mion. Sorry, it's just... oh boy. So, yeah, that would wrap the entire switcheroo situation in a neat bow. I guess. Blech. I think that I'm also gonna apply a hidden meta technique that maybe shouldn't apply to solving a murder mystery, but it is one that makes the most sense in terms of making a good story. That there being a switcheroo going on in the second half of the chapter would make the story more interesting than it truly being Mion who did it. That's it. That's the idea. From a story's perspective, it would just be interesting to think that is the case, rather than the obvious, in-your-face reveal that it was Mion who did it. That the mystery is not quite easy to solve. Okay, so if that's the case, the one at the bottom of the letter who was holding Keiichi hostage, that must be Shion. So it was Shion, the one having a breakdown about Satoko. Where the fuck is this coming from? It feels like such an out-of-pocket moment to put the spotlight on Satoko of all people right now. Whereas until now, Satoko, and for that matter, Satoshi, they were not the main focus of Chapter 2. Like, what? Like, this is telling me that Ryukishi wants us to think that Satoko and possibly Satoshi are extra reasons for why this stuff is happening, and that they are part of the reason why Shion is doing all this. And here come my previous theories that I explored throughout Chapter 2 as I read through it. Yes, it is the Shion might have really liked Satoshi, and if Shion can no longer have Satoshi, then neither Mion can have Keiichi. So Mion is punished for it, and made to suffer. I've talked about it in length, and here I will list my thoughts on it at the speed of sound. The parallel between Satoshi and Keiichi exists in Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and especially Chapter 3. The talk that Keiichi and Rika had with the cat metaphors make me think that Rika is talking about Satoshi who may have entered the ritual storehouse years prior, similar to Keiichi. Here are multiple scenarios for possible love connections between Keiichi, Satoshi, Mion, and Shion. 1. Mion is having feelings for Keiichi because she is reminded of Satoshi, so that means she had feelings for Satoshi prior. Mion and Shion had a rough past. Shion is trying to paint Mion in a bad light, and does not let Mion have Keiichi. 2. Shion is having feelings for Keiichi because she is reminded of Satoshi, and thus wants to get rid of Mion so that there is no competition. Except Mion likes Keiichi because he's Keiichi, nothing to do with Satoshi. 3. Both the girls have feelings for Keiichi because of Satoshi. Shion is enacting a revenge plan to get Mion so that she will not have him. 4. Shion has zero feelings for Keiichi, but Mion does. This has nothing to do with Satoshi. Either way, it can be possible that maybe Shion had bad blood for Mion because it can be possible she thinks Mion did something to make Satoshi disappear. Maybe Mion is the one who pushed Satoshi into getting inside the storehouse, so as a result, Shion does the same by putting Keiichi inside the ritual storehouse as revenge. Oh yeah, also Satoko. Well, in Chapter 3, we did find out that she finds herself at fault for Satoshi leaving, so no wonder Shion would probably feel the same way, and thus Shion would blame Satoko for having Satoshi leave. Not to mention in this one part, where Shion gets flustered about being seen as a girlfriend to Satoshi. Like the one time we see her flustered like this. I mean, come on, just come on. The deaths, they feel connected in this chapter. Kimiyoshi is dead because he's very much tied to the Sonozaki sisters in a way that I may have yet to determine, but it makes sense. Satoko had to die because of some beef that Shion has of her. In turn, Rika also had to die at the same time, otherwise killing Satoko would not have worked. So it sort of all fits, except for Tomitake and Takano. And yes, you can say that Shion had to kill them to fill Keiichi and Mion with fear of the curse and all, but nah, I think this is just Shion taking this as an opportunity to make Mion even more of a murderer by the end of it, making us think that she also went for those too. But nah, Tomitake died in all 3 chapters so far. And Takano either died in chapter 2 and 3 or disappeared in the first one. Like, I refuse to believe that Shion or Mion had the same kind of motives for chapter 1 and 3. Tomitake and Takano are a completely separate storyline / mystery that we have to get to the bottom. So yeah, let's begin. Who are these two? We've gone through 3 chapters and these two feel the most disconnected from everything that is happening in Hinamizawa. They don't feel related to any of the girls, they don't feel related to the past victims. I mean, you remember me not having much to say about them in the first investigation video. I mostly focused on how Tomitake was killed, what with the sounds and visuals being a part of the equation that would fuck Tomitake's mind to the point of death. It still can be the case when it comes to how we don't really have much to go on throughout these chapters to add to my theories from investigation 1, but today we have to ask this: who did it? Who did these particular murders? And why is Takano so goddamn suspicious? I mean, she's literally standing in front of us every single chapter, not knowing much about her, almost as if she's twirling her metaphorical evil moustache, having us question if she is the bad guy, or that it may even be too obvious for her to be one. And now I'm obligated to put a moustache on her because of this. Like, the main thing right now that occupies my mind and makes me think of Takano as possible culprit is this last tip near the end of chapter 3 about the fruited generations and how Rika may be the 8th one, which would make her the new reincarnation of Oyashiro, and how it would create a hellish landscape if the village were to lose her. Lo and behold, the end of the world of Hinamizawa happened. How can I not think that Takano had something to do with this? I mean, did you see the last lines of the tip? Like, who else talks like that? So, it makes me think that maybe she faked her death in order to move freely and kill Rika. Like, see what happens if she dies. Lo and behold, the great disaster happened. And ho, don't even get me started on the great disaster itself. I will come back to that real soon. But okay, if Takano killed Tomitake, the question stands, how did she fake her death? Cause really, this could very well be a case of faking your death in order to continue the murdering. Like, that is a common trope in murder mysteries. Burning your entire body in flames to the point of not being able to recognize your body easily would confuse you a little on whether it was her or someone else. Hell, it happened in Umineko as well. At the end of chapter 2, Oishi brought up the problem of how Takano was with us before the festival, and yet the woman that got burned, who is supposedly Takano, died long before that. I actually thought that the dental records matched, but even that seems vague to me. I don't think that they ever confirmed it? I don't know. More importantly, if the police can determine that the body was burnt 24 hours prior, would Takano make that kind of mistake to let the police know that? It's not really a strong alibi. You would kill the random woman the day you want to fake your own death, so that it all aligns. Like, either Takano made that kind of mistake when it comes to killing the woman like much earlier than needed, or Takano made the mistake of being that day, like the day before her quote-unquote murder. Like, you could say that it is an error that she made? I guess. Though, looking at her, it doesn't feel like she's the type to make that kind of error. She feels like the calculating type person. I mean, who knows? Maybe the police are all on it, faking deaths like left and right. In which case, fuck the autopsy and all the details. Maybe Tomitake never died. Or at least, not the way they described it. A random hooligan killed the aunt last year? Nah. Satoshi killed the aunt, and then Takano and Tomitake kidnapped Satoshi and had the police fake the incident by pinning a random dude as the one who did it. And then they silenced him inside prison so that he would never talk. Or, we can go with the idea that the woman that got burned was named Takano, truly. And even the police records will say that, no doubt about it, dental and everything. But the woman that we have always seen in these chapters is not truly called Takano, but rather she has a different name, and is pretending to be Takano. You know what? Let's leave the house for later. I think what is important to think about is why. Why is Takano doing this? And I think that before we try and think of options for this, let's move on to the next topic, the spiciest of them all. The great disaster and the curse / illness. Oh, by the way, before I forget to do this, and so that I remind people of it, when I mention curse, quote-unquote curse, in these last 2 chapters, and especially in this video here, I'm referring to some form of illness / affliction of the mind that is affecting people, not a literal curse. So, alright, let's lay on the table real quick what the options are for this. 1. The volcanic gas is true, and is a source of the curse / illness. Over the course of history for Hinamizawa, previously known as Onigafuchi village, the volcano was leaking small amounts of gas over time that would affect people's minds slowly, to the point of going crazy. But now the volcano decided to leak so much gas in huge quantities that upon exposure, it would instantly kill you instead. Bonus, maybe it is Keiichi dumping Teppei's motorcycle that made the bottom of Onigafuchi swamp explode and have the volcano erupt. 2. The volcanic gas is true, but that and the curse are 2 separate things, and have no connection to one another. It's basically just a tragic end. And number 3, and arguably the most interesting one of them all, it's the government! Oh, the government is at it again! There is no such thing as volcanic gas destroying the village. They effectively killed everyone in the village with either some biological weapon or mass shooting, as possible response to the curse going too far. And I guess in that sense, might as well add a 4th option here. Like, it's the government, and they are using the curse to kill everyone in the village. Reminder, If you haven't yet, if you want to know my opinion about the curse, and what it might be, and why I keep mentioning experimenting and disease and what form the curse takes, and why I keep looking at Higurashis as if they are the murderers, please go check Season 1 investigation video. Now, evidences towards the volcanic gas not being true. 1. The cause of the deaths, like Tomitake, were difficult to trace, and yet the cause here was found instantly as a gas from a volcano? Really? 2. Death happened instantly to people, and a lot of people died at once? And last one, and arguably the most important piece here. According to the interview tape at the end, the volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing into lower and lower places, kind of like what water does. With Onikafuchi Swamp as its source, and them testing its water to see how the gas erupted, it would have flowed to where Keiichi is, and he would have been in the middle of that. How did he survive? Either he has not passed there, which is what the reporter thinks, or the volcanic eruption did not exist. It was something else that killed people. Keiichi should have died by the volcano, but he didn't. This tells me that whatever it is that killed the people in Hinamizawa, it was targeted. And they obviously did not target the area where the bridge or the river was, where Keiichi was, because the SDF would not think that someone is there. Can I say that it was just the SDF that did it? Well, maybe, but let's not forget the curse either. Let me present you a scenario right over here. Rika is loved by everyone. She is the last of the Fururu family, and the possible reincarnation of Oyashiro, if we are to go by what Takano said in her research notes at the end. And then she dies. People find out that she died, all mutilated in the shrine grounds. Oh no! Everyone is starting to panic! The curse is taking effect! People are starting to kill each other! Bloody demons everywhere trying to kill you! Murder like everywhere. The government? They have been looking over Hinamizawa over the years, observing the events taking place there, ever since the dam project. Like, maybe even longer. Again, the leak of the illness from lab experiment failures back in the years of war. Again, Season 1 investigation video. They have been observing Hinamizawa. Each year, people dying. And now Rika dies. Everyone is dying. And the government decided, nope, that's it. We're done. This village is screwed. It's fucked up beyond belief. Shut it down, pull the plug. They see that this curse has gone too far to be contained in the village, and decided to cover the complete erasure of the village with a fake story about the volcano doing it. It is a cover-up so that the curse would no longer spread, or for the world to not know the truth behind the curse. That maybe the government did some fucked up experiments in the past that led to the eventual end of the village. Let's go back to Takano here. Why is she doing this? Assuming that she's faking her death to do the killings, especially to kill Rika. 1. She's doing the killings in the name of the government to test the curse to its limits, to have everyone end up dead and have the government find an excuse to kill the entire village for reasons unknown. This is the case if the government is using curse on the village for testing and is not trying to get rid of it. That the government is the source of the curse and they're using it on the village, maybe to possibly use it as a biological weapon in future wars, in case it works. And they're using Takano and Tomitake as triggers so that people would evolve to further stages of the curse and do as the government planned. In this case, it would mean Takano and Tomitake are working with the government. 2. She is doing the killings against the government's wishes to contain and eliminate the curse, in which case the government would use some other biological weapon and SDF to destroy as a last resort thing, in which case Takano has a beef with the government. This brings up two new branches of possibilities. 2A. Takano is doing the killings to destroy the village, or kill specific people, or anything that would have Takano have a beef against the village. Maybe revenge for the events of the dam project. Maybe someone she holds dear has died. The fact that the government came in to finish everyone is a bonus, and she may have beef with the government too, but ultimately Takano has ill intent towards the village more than anything. 2B. Takano is doing the killings to save the village, that she thinks that there is no way for the village to be saved, so rather than have everyone suffer for years and years, she decided to take action and kill people to the point where the government has no choice but to contain and destroy the village, thus try to eliminate the curse effectively. Maybe Takano is working with the government, and really tried her best to do something to end this curse, but the government would not take action, that they would not do as Takano wished. So Takano decides, you know what, if you're not gonna take action, then I will. I'm gonna create such chaos to the point where the curse would go out of control to the point where you, the government, have no choice but to take action. Maybe Takano saw that the government is trying to weaponize this curse, so she decided to try and pull the plug on the operation and have the curse fail by having it go out of control. Maybe she wanted to create such chaos that the entire village would find out about the evil, disgusting plans that the government tried to do with this. Let me add something to 2A. There was something that Rena said in all cast review of chapter 2 of all places, that the current killer of this year did it to distract and protect the person that did the killings years prior. It was the idea that Mion mentioned how she killed every victim in previous years to throw the suspicion away from the actual murder of her previous years, to protect them. It was Rena who mentioned this particular idea. So let's go for a more romantic idea here. Takano loved someone, and that someone is the reason why Takano is doing all of this. And here comes new options. Person X, the person that Takano cared about, decided to go against the government and try to stop the curse by killing people and creating chaos to the point where the government has no choice but to pull the plug on the entire thing. He died, and thus Takano is going forward to try and fulfill that person's wish, with success this time. 2. Person X decided to go in the name of the government and help test the curse to the point of having many people die. He himself died, and Takano is now continuing the person's mission. And obviously we can toy with many more variations of these options. Maybe the person was with the government, but Takano is against it, or vice versa, yada yada yada. Anyway, the main idea is that the reason why Takano is doing so much research into Hinamizawa and its people, its history and all that, was to find an effective way to fulfill her plan. Oh my god, and don't even get me started on the possibility of a secret organization being a part of it, and not the main government per se. Because I talked about the secret organizations in Season 1 investigation, so yeah, just put the secret organization in the mix above. Like, there are like so many branches at this point, like it's crazy. Hell, instead of a two-way Takano and government thing, we could very well have like a three-way battle between Takano, the government, and the secret organization. Maybe the government and the secret organization are one and the same, either making the curse or trying to stop it. Maybe the secret organization created it, and the government is trying to stop it, or vice versa, that the government created it and the organization is trying to stop it. Maybe Takano is working with the organization to stop the curse and spread it, yada 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 yada. Alright, what about Tomitake? Is he Takano's partner in this personal mission of hers, whatever it may be? Or is he against it? Is it that Takano is with the government and Tomitake is not? Or is she against the government, whereas Tomitake is with the government? That maybe Takano decided to kill Tomitake because he was a huge part for the testing of the curse, so killing him would be beneficial to stopping the curse. Either way, I guess since we're talking about this, might as well throw this thought that maybe the people disappeared over the years because Takano and Tomitake did it, taking them to the government for experimenting, which I found the idea in Season 1 investigation video. Except this time, Tomitake and Takano may be involved in it. Like, who knows? Maybe they are the ones that took Satoshi. Whether for the sake of experimenting on the curse or finding a cure for it. Maybe they kidnap him and kill him? Who knows? And since we're on the topic of governments, and experimenting and the two motherfuckers possibly at the center of it, let's ask the same for the Irie. Who the hell is he? Is he secretly part of the whole ordeal? Reason why he had to be disposed of by Takano? Does he have something to do with whatever is happening to the people's minds? Is the reason why Irie is so close to Satoko is because he knows something about Satoshi's disappearance? Did he have something to do with it? Is he working with the government to treat the quote-unquote curse? And thus Satoshi is part of that? Could it be that he is the man in lab coat that we heard of at the end of chapter 1, before Keiichi ran away? I don't know. But you know what? Let's go over his dialogue and see if I can find something. The general idea is that if Irie had the chance to adopt Satoko and to make her happy, he would, but couldn't, because of not being married and such. If there are two constants that I will not budge on, it is that Irie cares a lot about Satoko's well-being, and that we trust in Mion, and that the Sonozakis are not at fault for the murders. Which can give more weight to how Takano was trying to influence Keiichi into thinking it is the Sonozakis that did it, which is pretty much suspicious, but I digress. We talked to Irie at the barbecue, we talked to him inside his car, like going home. Like, I cannot say that I noticed any interesting points in their dialogue that leads me to believe that Irie is trying to do something in secret. Like, it can go both ways, whether he is just speaking his heart about the situation and doesn't know if Satoshi will ever come back, or if he's alive, or he does know something, but is very good at hiding it. Like, nothing at this particular point when he visited the clinic. Like, he talked about doppelgangers, which makes me think back to Satoshi and all that. Let me go at this from a different angle. Like, go outside the box a little and think about the narrative. One question that we could ask here is, why does Irie have to be a doctor? He was introduced as a coach for baseball teams, and someone that knows Satoko and Satoshi. Wouldn't you think that with just that information about him, he would have functioned just the same in this chapter? His big thing is that he's someone very important to the siblings, and that he cares about them. And we got introduced to Coach Irie. Him being a coach means that he would have plenty of time to bond with kids. He is a teacher type. He is that kind of person, that sweet person that would care about children a lot. Despite the whole maid thing, I don't know where that comes from. Like, he is a teacher type, similar to Chi. So it makes sense for him to care about those like Satoko and Satoshi. And yet later, we also get introduced to Dr. Irie. What does that add to this character? If he was just a doctor, and he was never a coach, nor he ever worked at school, would he have formed just as much strong feelings for Satoko and Satoshi? Like, unless we were to find out that Satoshi and Satoko were very sickly, and he was some form of a family doctor for the Hojos, when the OG parents were still alive, to the point where he would form a bond with the family. Like, maybe in similar fashion to how Nanjo has eventually formed a bond with Kinzo Yumineko, like after many years of doctoring him. Like, if that were the case, that would make sense. But we don't know that. So him being a doctor, it feels kind of... doesn't feel that necessary. Like, it feels like such a side thing as of now. Save for the plot of Keiichi almost being detained by him and the other doctor for murdering Teppei. But other than that, it just feels weird. Which is an extra reason why I'm thinking about governments and experimenting and all that. Because I did have this reaction in chapter 3, like when we found out from Moishi that he was a doctor. I was like, let's bring up that topic that I kept blabbering about throughout chapter 3. That Keiichi and Satoshi are the same? Question mark? I've talked about it plenty throughout chapter 3, so I'm just gonna speed through it. I brought up the possibility that due to how there are so many similarities between Keiichi and Satoshi, that maybe Keiichi is a clone of Satoshi, or Keiichi is Satoshi. So they kidnapped Satoshi, took his memories, changed him, made a brand new Keiichi, and then put him inside the village to further experiment with a pre-existing victim of the curse, but under a new coat of paint, see what will happen. So yeah, that includes the possibility that Keiichi's parents, they are scientists, that Keiichi's memories have been fabricated and all of that stuff. I mean, we did find out that Keiichi's mom is quite high on the academics, so yeah, there's that. There's also the thought that Keiichi's usual inner monologues he has in his mind are somewhat conversations with past Satoshi, with the whole, hey Keiichi Maebara, or keep calm Keiichi Maebara, that he keeps doing, as if talking to himself, or his past Satoshi self. And that's it. I feel like I brought it up enough throughout chapter 3, so you can go ahead and watch my chapter 3 read through if you haven't. And the idea that this is done for the sake of experimenting on the curse? Okay, plausible, I guess. Let's talk about Satoko a little bit. I already mentioned that with Satoko's little story at the end about sneaking inside the ritual storehouse years ago, it makes sense to think that she more than likely was the one that snuck inside it in chapter 2 and made those noises. Hell, when you think about it, if Satoko told the other girls that Keiichi and Shion went inside, it makes sense why the next day, Mion asked Keiichi about last night, like, Keiichi, did you see Takano or Tomitake last night? Did you see Shion anywhere? And that apparently there are some people speaking ill about the exact same 4 people that entered the storehouse. Okay, and I think that's it. No, wait, hold on a second. We also have the topic of Teppei being dead or not. Like, my god. Yeah. You know that feeling when you feel like you talked about everything you thought was important? And I thought Teppei was one of them, but I didn't because it already felt like I talked plenty about it during the read-through of the chapter. And it's like one of the biggest plots about chapter 3, and yet I almost forgot to talk about it. Alright, in that case, I'll just speed through this since I already talked about it plenty. 2 options. Teppei is not dead, and Teppei is dead. 1. Teppei is not dead. And that means the following. Keiichi murdering Teppei was all in his mind. He thought he did it, but in actuality he was at the festival, in the same description that the girls told him. So what they told Keiichi at school was all true. Satoko saying that Teppei was always there at home is true. Someone else took the mental bath from school. The motorbike and Teppei were not there the morning where we found Satoko was because he rode somewhere, we don't know where. And the reason why we never found Teppei in the forest again, and why she found us, was because he was never dead to begin with. So we would attribute to Keiichi going complete bonkers. 2. Teppei is dead. Keiichi indeed murdered Teppei. The girls lied about Keiichi being at the festival because they covered for him. Keiichi was not there at the festival, like at all. Satoko saying that Teppei was there is false, and that she may be the one hallucinating in this case, being affected by the illness the same way as Keiichi. Keiichi indeed took the metal bat and threw it in the swamp. He indeed threw the motorbike in the swamp. Teppei was not there in the morning because he is dead. And the reason why we never found Teppei in the forest was because his body was more than likely moved by the girls to a different location, which could very well be the treasure hunt place. Reason why Mion and Rena wanted to go with Keiichi there, to confess to him, and to tell him that we will hide the body together, and that we are in this together for the sake of Satoko. Not to mention that we have confirmation from the tips that the police saw Teppei riding his bike away from home on the night of Watanagashi. So we do have confirmation that he left at some point. Boom, there you have it, 2 options. And I'll go with the second option since it is far more interesting to me. It is interesting that Higurashi always leaves a lot of things super vague. They could have easily tried to give us the twist with a big conclusive evidence that it is option 1, in that we would see Teppei alive and that Keiichi is just fucked up in the head, but no, we are left thinking whether it is true or not, similarly to him, which is pretty interesting. Alright, I think I'm gonna wrap it up for now. See you in the next chapter, bye.